Good morning, students, and today the topic which we are going to discuss is lecture method. Now, learning objectives of today's topic are the concept of lecture method means you will able to understand the concept of lecture method. The use of lecture method, where the teacher should use the lecture method. Able to analyze and understand the lecture method means this is a lecture method and how it is different from other methods. Know the importance of lecture method, you will able to know that this is the importance of lecture method. To identify the steps of lecture method, and these are the specific steps of developing a lecture method. Now, introduction. Lecture method of teaching means if the teacher is teaching with the lecture method is the oldest teaching method means for many years the lecture method has been used by the teacher for teaching the students. That's why we are calling it an oldest teaching method applied in educational institution. That lecture method is being called as the oldest teaching method as these this teaching method has been used by educational institutions for many years. This teaching method is one way channel of communication of information. Now, lecture method is called as a one way of communication means the teacher is actively involved in the teaching learning process and the students are just passive listeners. Students' involvement in this teaching method is just to listen. You know what is that? Means they are not involved in the teaching learning process. They are just listening what the teacher is saying. And sometimes pen down some notes. Sometimes they note down some important points if necessary during the lecture. If they consider that this is important point, they note down. Combine the information and organize it. Lecture method is the most commonly used method of teaching. This is the most common used method of teaching the students, and this method has been used by every teacher to teach every content or subject. If a teacher controlled and information centered approach, it is a teacher controlled, means the whole sole power of the teaching learning process is in the hands of the teacher. An information centered approach, and the information is delivered by the teacher, in which the teacher work as a sole resource in classroom instructions means all the information is imparted by the teacher only, and the sole resource of information is the teacher. In lecture method, only the teacher talks and students are passive listeners. Means teachers are actively involved in the teaching learning process and students are just passive listeners. They are just sitting and listen what the teacher is saying. Since the students do not actively participate in this method, the students will actively participate when there will be an interaction or discussion between the student and teacher on certain points. But here the teacher is giving the information and students are just listening that information. Participate in this method of teaching. This is a teacher controlled and information centered method. That's why we are saying that the whole control of the in the learning process or the teaching learning process is on the teacher and students are just the passive listeners. In the field of education, lecture method is used very frequently. Means that method is used very frequently by the teacher. This method is used in order to acquire knowledge and concept. Lecture method is used by the learner to acquire, to gain the knowledge and to understand any concept. Lecture method mainly focuses on cognitive objective. Now, what is that? We know that there is a cognitive objective, affective, and psychomotor. But the lecture method is focusing, giving importance only the cognitive objective, means the knowledge aspect. The main emphasis of this strategy is the presentation of the content. Now, the main emphasis of the strategy, the lecture method strategy, is the presentation of the content. The content is presented by the teacher to the students. In this method, teacher plans and control the whole teaching learning process. Means in this method, in the lecture method, teachers plan means the teacher plan the whole te- lesson plan and controls the whole teaching learning process, and the whole control of the lesson plan teaching learning process is under the control of the teacher. Lecture method is most commonly followed in colleges and schools in big classes. Means that lecture method is used by the teacher when they are teaching the students of higher classes, or we can say lecture method is not suitable for teaching the primary or upper primary student. This method is not quite suitable to realize the real aim of teaching. Now, the real aim of teaching is the whole soul development of the learner. But in lecture method, only the cognitive development of the learner is possible. Now, principles of lecture method. A student can learn better through listening. Now, what are the different principles? And the first principle is that a student learn better means the learning of the student is better when the teacher is delivering a lecture. Or through that lecture, what the student is doing, the student is just listening. So they are saying that when a student listens something, then the learning is better for a student. Through lecture method means when the lecture method is employed by the teacher can make an attempt to impart perfect and complete knowledge of the subject or the topic to the students. Now, when the teacher is using a lecture method in the class, then the teacher makes an attempt to impart perfect and complete knowledge. Means through the use of the lecture method, the teacher is imparting complete knowledge to the learners of the subject which the teacher is teaching, or the topic which the teacher is teaching to the students. Subject matter can be correlated with other subjects. Now, the subject matter which the teacher is teaching can be correlated with other subjects. For example, if I am teaching you economics, then I can correlate economics with commerce and bookkeeping. New knowledge is given related to previous knowledge. Means when the teacher is giving the new knowledge to the students, at that time, the teacher can relate that new knowledge with the previous knowledge of the learners. Now, when to use lecture method? When a teacher has to use a lecture method, it is used to give an overview of a large unit when the content is very large, and when the teacher thinks that it is a large unit, at that time the lecture method should be used by the teacher. This method is an effective way, means the lecture method is an effective way for motivating, for encouraging people and develop their interest in the subject. Means the lecture method motivates the students to learn that topic and develop the interest of the learners in that particular subject. It is used for supplementing the pupil reading and for clarifying main concept. Means the lecture method will be used for clarifying any doubts related to the students related to that particular topic or subject, and for clarifying main concept, and the teacher can clarify the doubts of the learner related to that topic. This method helps to save the time of students. If the teacher will use a project method, if the teacher will use a supervised method, it is a time consuming process. So they are saying in comparison to other methods that has been employed by the teacher during the teaching learning process, the lecture method saves the times of student by providing important information in short time duration. Means important information will be given by the teacher in short time duration to the students when the teacher is using the lecture method. This method is used to provide background. Now, Wesley, Agaby, Gonski, Stanley suggested that the lecture method served four basic purposes. Now, they are saying that a lecture method is having four basic purposes. Now, first one is to motivate. Means it motivate, it encourages the learner. To clarify means with the help of the lecture method, the teacher can clarify the concept of the learners. The teacher can clarify the main doubts of the learner. To review, the teacher can review the progress of the learner, how much they have learned that basic concept. To expand the knowledge of the learners related to that particular concept. Now, steps of the lecture method. What are the different steps of lecture method when a teacher decided to teach the students to, with the help of the lecture method, what steps he should follow? The first one is preparation for the lecture. The first one is what? The teacher has to prepare a lecture if he wants to teach the students with the help of the lecture method. Now, this includes silent points like appropriate language means the language should be proper, it should be easy so that the student can easily understand it. And manner of presentation, how the lecture has to be present in front of the learner according to the nature of students. Means how the student learn that concept, what is the basic nature of the student, what are the basic needs of the student. Keeping in mind all the things, the teacher has to prepare the presentation and how the presentation should be presented in front of the learner. Selection of audiovisual aids and instructional material means according to the content, according to the topic, the teacher has to select that these are the audiovisual aids that will be used by me for teaching that particular topic. Planning the motivational technique, anticipating certain difficulties and problems during the lecture, and these are the problems which the teacher says that these problems he will anticipate certain difficulties that these problems he can face during the teaching learning process, finding suitable solutions, and he will have to find out that these are the suitable solutions for these particular problems and alternatives to these barriers to a successful lecture, and alternatives to these barriers, and these are the alternatives which will be used by me to be a successful lecture. Now the second one is introduction to the lecture, how the teacher will introduce lecture to the students. It should be done briefly. Now today's topic is this. It should the introduction should be done by the teacher in a brief manner. And if it is executed poorly, what it means, if the teacher is not able to introduce the topic to the students in a proper manner, then what will happen? It can initially kill off the enthusiasm of the students. If the teacher is not introducing the uh, topic with content to the students in a proper manner, then the enthusiasm of the students will be killed, means they will not motivated, their interest will be very less to learn that topic. Now the third one is giving the body of the lecture. Now the teacher should have given cognitive framework upon which he relies to achieve a more logical presentation. The teacher should have a given cognitive framework, that these are the cognitive frameworks upon which he relies to achieve a more logical presentation of his. Now, conclusion of the lecture, how the teacher should wrap up his lecture. Following technique can be used to wrap up the lecture. Means these are the techniques which can be used by the teacher when he is wrapping up the lecture. The first one is summarizing the major points presented. Now, what is that? The teacher has to summarize the major points, the main points related to the lecture that he has delivered. Forming journalization means the teacher has to journalize the concepts, giving implications how that knowledge can be implied by the students. Now, planning the lecture. Before starting to prepare a lecture, the teacher must be able to answer four basic questions. The teacher has planned that I will prepare this lecture, I will deliver this lecture, and the teacher must be able to answer these four basic questions before preparing a lecture. Who is your audience? To whom you are going to deliver this lecture, whether for primary section, secondary section, or the higher secondary section. You must know your students. What is the purpose of your lecture? What is the objective of giving that particular lecture? How much time is available? Means how much time is given by the timetable in charges to you to deliver that particular lecture. What is the subject matter? What is the subject matter of that particular lecture? Whether it is talking about curriculum, whether it is talking about research, what is the subject matter of that particular lecture? Now, purpose of lecture. The objectives of lecture may be to, these are the objectives of a lecture. Give journal information on the subject, means the student will have some journal information related to that subject. Means the student will have some journal information related to that subject. Gain acceptance for a new point of view, means new knowledge will be added to his previous knowledge. Change basic attitude, it will change the basic attitude of the learner. Teach a particular skill, and that lecture will teach a particular skill in to the learners, and the learners will develop that particular skill. Now, situations where lecture method can be used. What are the different situations where the teacher can use the lecture method to teach his students? The first one is in the introduction of a new topic. When the teacher is introducing a new topic to his learners, at that time the teacher can use a lecture method. First thing. In the introduction of new instruments, if the teacher is introducing new instruments to the learner, then the teacher has to use a lecture method. Revising and summarizing lessons. When the teacher is revising a particular concept or a particular topic, at the revision of the learner, the teacher can use lecture method. And summarizing means when he is summarizing the major points, that time also the teacher can use a lecture method. Covering the syllabus quickly. If the teacher wants to cover the whole syllabus quickly, or we can say in a proper duration, in a proper time, then the teacher can use a lecture method. Presenting the history of plants and animals. When the teacher is presenting to the learners the history of plants and animals, at that time also a teacher can use a lecture method. A good lecturer must take care of when you are going to teach in the class. These points must be in your mind when you are delivering a lecture with the lecture method. Time available means the duration in which you have to complete that particular topic. The audience, who is your audience, means to whom you are addressing. Subject matter, the subject matter, the topic, the content, the syllabus which you are going to teach to the learner. The subject matter must be related to the curriculum. It can be related to assessment. It can be related to research. It can anything. Posture, your body language should be appropriate while you are giving a lecture. You should be energetic. Appearance, you should be well dressed. The manner in which you are addressing your students. Gestures, different gestures that you are using while delivering the lecture. Voice, your voice should be such that even the student who is sitting at the end of the class also able to hear you properly. Vocabulary means no uh, mistakes should be done by the teacher. Use of audio visual aids and blackboard. Now the teacher should know the skill of using the blackboard in an effective manner first thing. And the teacher has to select that these are the audio visual aids that will be used by me while imparting or giving the lecture to the students. Now, organizing the lecture. The first one is aim. Means you must clear that this is my aim, this is my goal, this is my purpose of teaching that particular topic. Then introduction, how you will introduce your topic. The introduction should be such that it will develop the interest of the learner in teaching. Body, your body languages. Example discussion, what type of examples will be taken by you while making the concept clear to the students. Demonstrations, illustrations, if you need some demonstrations and illustration. Questions questions by the students, the teacher can ask some questions related to the topic which he had taught. Conclusion, and in the end, the teacher should conclude the lecture by again clarify the important points or the major points of the lecture. How to evaluate a lecture? The teacher can use a technique. How is my lectures of today? The speaker content expertise. Whether the teacher has the full knowledge or information related to the content which he has delivered today. The language use. The language is appropriate be used by the teacher or not. The degree of transparency of presentations means the presentation, the manner in which the things are presented to the learner. Use of audio visual aids, whether today I use any audio visual aid to make my lesson plan effective. Attention and intellectual participation of people. Yeah, same. In lecture method, there is a very less participation of students in the uh, teaching learning process. Now, attention, how you will able to get the attention of the students, and intellectual participation of people, how will you able to increase the intellectual participation of people in the teaching learning process. Now, next is advantages of lecture method. What are the different merits or advantages of lecture method? It is quite economical method. You don't have to spend so much amount of money when you are using lecture method to teach the student, because it is possible to handle a large numbers of students at a time. Uh, what it means that when a teacher is delivering or teaching with the help of the lecture method, then he can teach a large number of students at a particular time, and no laboratory equipments. You do not require any labs for it. Aids, any audio aids, materials are required, and other materials are required to teach the students. Using this method, the knowledge can be imparted to students quickly. The teacher can give maximum number of information or knowledge to the students with using lecture method, and prescribed syllabus can be covered in short time, and the time duration that is required by the teacher for the completion of the syllabus is very short. Means in a short duration the teacher can complete the syllabus. It helps good audience habit, means it develops good audience habit. It means it will develop good audience habits in the students, that they will develop the habit to listen to others. Through this method, means through lecture method, new subject matter can easily be introduced. Means the teacher can easily introduce a new subject matters to the students in a very proper manner. It enables linkage between previous knowledge with the new one. Means if the teacher is giving information or knowledge with the help of lecture method, then that lecture method helps the students to establish a link between his previous knowledge and his current knowledge. It is quite attractive. Lecture method is quite attractive and easy to follow and easy to use by the teacher. And also by this method, teacher can develop his own style of teaching and exposition. And by using the lecture method, the teacher can develop his own style of teaching. Means the teacher is using the lecture method, but he can develop his own style of teaching and exposition also when he is teaching with the lecture method. It helps in achieving even high order cognitive objective. Higher order cognitive skills can easily be achieved with the help of the lecture method, that is application, how to apply the knowledge, analysis, the analysis of the knowledge, and synthesis of the knowledge. Lecture method presents the subject matter in a systematic manner. Now, when the teacher is giving or imparting knowledge to the students or presenting the subject matter, that subject matter can be delivered to the students in a systematic or a proper manner. It simplifies the task of teacher as she dominates the lesson for a 75 to 80% of the lesson time, and students just listen to her. Now, the task of teacher it's simplified because the whole sole control of the teaching learning process is in the hand of the teachers, and students are just passively listening what the teacher is saying. So that's why they are saying that it simplifies the task of teachers. Some good lectures delivered by the teacher may motivate, encourage the students, instigate to know new things about that concept, and inspire a student for creative thinking. And they will inspire the student to think in a creative manner, in a divergent thinking. Now, what are the disadvantages, demerits if the teacher is teaching with the help of lecture method? In this method, the student participation is negligible. Means the students are just passive listeners. They are just listening what the teachers are saying. They are not actively involved in the teaching learning process. And when the students are not involved in the actively in the teaching learning process, we will say that the learning of the students are not up to the mark. They will learn only when they are actively involved in that process. Students become passive recipients of information, means they are just listening what the teacher is saying. Now, the second disadvantage is in this method, we are never sure if the students are concentrating. Uh, when the teacher is using lecture method, sometimes it is very difficult for teachers to know whether their students are concentrating on listening or not and understanding the subject matter, or whether they are understanding the subject matter or not being taught to them by teacher, which is being taught by the teacher. In this method, knowledge is important so rapidly that weak students develop a heart rate for learning. What it means, when the teacher is using a lecture method, then the teacher is imparting the knowledge to the students in a very fast manner. Then what will happen? It will lead to that the weaker students who are not able to cope up with the fast delivering of the knowledge of the teachers develop a hatred for learning. Uh, they don't want to be involved in the teaching learning process. They are not want to be a part of the learning, and they are hatred for the learning. In this method, means in the lecture method, there is no place of learning by doing. Means the students are not involved in where we are saying that they learn by doing something. And thus teaching by this method strikes at the very root of science. And the very root of science, that the students learn more when they are involved in the teaching learning process, its rooted out strikes out. It does not take into account the previous knowledge of students and does not take care caters to individual needs and differences of students. Now, what they are saying, teacher is teaching with this lecture method to the whole class at a particular time. There are different students in the class, and there are different needs of the students. Only the lecture method cannot able to satisfy the needs of each and every student that is present in the class. So it is not a best method to cater to individual needs and differences of students. It is an undemocratic. Now, why undemocratic? Because the whole sole power of the teaching learning process is in the hand of the teacher only. There is no rights of the students. And on authority, the teacher has all the authority. Method, as students cannot challenge or question the verdict of the teacher. Why? Because the students do not have any right. It does not help to inculcate scientific attitudes and training in scientific methods among the people, because they do not have the right to question why it is happening, why not we can do that. They are just listening the information which has been imparted by the teacher. Now, conclusion, this method is suitable for teaching in higher classes. Means lecture method has been used where the teacher is teaching the higher classes at the college level or at the university level, where we aim to cover the prescribed syllabus quickly, where the aim of the teacher is to cover the whole syllabus in the prescribed duration. And also, this method will help them to prepare themselves for college, where lecture method of teaching is a dominant method of imparting instruction. And the lecture method is the method which has been used by the teachers for imparting knowledge to the learners when we are talking about when they are in their colleges or in their universities. Today we have discussed about the meaning and concept of lecture method, why lecture method is important, what things should be keep in mind by the teacher when he is decided that he will use lecture method to teach the students? What are the stages and steps of developing a lesson plan? Lecture method. Now, these are the MCQs. Now, let us discuss some MCQs. As MCQs are the best method to teach the students learn how much they have learned, what are their learning outcomes. The first one is method of teaching is the oldest teaching method applied in educational institution. Means which method is called as the oldest teaching method and that was being used by in education institution. The first one is project, second one is discovery, third one is lecture, or the fourth one is inquiry. Now, these are the options, students, and you have to select the correct one. And the correct one is option C, that is lecture method. Means lecture method is the oldest teaching method. Students are passive in which method students are not actively involved in the teaching learning process. Now the options are project method, B. Discovery method, C. Lecture method, or it's D. Inquiry method. Now you have to select the correct answer, and the correct answer is lecture method, means option C. Now, third one, dash method is one-way channel of communication of information. Means which method is we called where there is a one way of communication, means the teacher is imparting the knowledge and students are just listening it. Now the options are A. Lecture method, B. Discovery method, both lecture method and the discovery method, or it's D. None, neither lecture method nor the discovery method. So the correct answer is option A, that is lecture method, where the information is imparted in a one-way communication to the students. Dash is a teacher-controlled and information-centered approach. Which method is called as a teacher control method, as all the control of the teaching learning process is in the hand of the teacher, and information centered approach where the whole information is imparted by the teacher only. Now the options are A. Lecture method, B. Discovery method, C. Demonstration method, or it's D. Problem solving method. Now these are the options and you have to select the correct one, and the correct answer is option A, that is lecture method. Which is the best method of teaching at secondary level? Means which method will be called as the best method when we are teaching students at secondary level or at the higher level of education? Now the options are A. Lecture, B. Analytic, C. Direct, or it's D. Demonstration. So the correct answer is option A, that is lecture method. So a lecture method is the best method of teaching when we are teaching the students at secondary level. Now the next one is lecture method mainly focuses on objectives. Means lecture method mainly focuses gives importance to which type of objective. Now the options are A. Cognitive, B. Effective, C. Psychomotor, or D. None of the above given choices. Now the options are these and you have to select the correct answer, and the correct answer is option A, that is cognitive. Dash is used for supplementing the pupil reading and for clarifying main concept, which is used for supplementing the pupil reading and for clarifying the main concepts. Now the options are A. Lecture, B. Analytic, C. Direct, or else D. Demonstration. So the option is option A, that is lecture is used for supplementing the pupil reading and for clarifying main concepts. The next one is dash method. Teachers plan and control the whole teaching learning process. Which method is called as that method where the teacher has to plan each and everything and the teacher control the whole teaching learning process. Now the options are A lecture, B analytic, C direct, or it's D demonstration. So the correct answer is option A, that is a lecture method is a method where the teacher plans each and everything and the whole teaching learning process is under his control. Now, dash method help to save the time of students. Now, which method saves the time of students by providing important information in short time period? Means which method is that which saves the time of students first thing, and it's saving the time of students in such a manner that all the important information is delivered to the students in a very short time duration. Now the options are A lecture, B demonstration, C discussion, or it's D project. So the correct answer is option A, that is lecture method. It's helped the students to save the time as they are getting important information, all the important information in a very short time duration. Dash should be done briefly, and it if it is executed poorly, it can initially kill off the enthusiasm of the students. Now, what should be done briefly first thing, and if it's not done in a proper manner, it can initially kill off the enthusiasm of the students. Means it will kill the enthusiasm of the students to learn something. Options are A. Introduction, B. Analytic, C. Direct, or it's D. Demonstration. Now these are the options, and now you have to select the correct answer. And the correct answer is option A. That is introduction. Means introduction should be done in a brief manner, and it should be done in such a way that it develop the interest of the learners in that particular concept. Thank you, students. With this particular narration, you understood the concept of a lecture method, why lecture method is so much important, and the lecture method uh, is used mainly when you are teaching the students of higher education level. Second thing, what are the steps or stages from which you have to go through when you are developing a lesson plan through the lecture method. And in lecture method, you can give the students the important information, the whole information in a very short duration of time, first thing. And second thing, it is very economical for the teachers as well as for the students on the basis of time. It saves the times of the students also. Thank you, students. Thank you for your patience listening.